He didn't follow her because he was suspicious he followed her, because something about the way she walked screamed, "I'm running." Marina Duarte tugged her oversized cleaning uniform lower as she left the locker room, pretending the loose fabric could hide what everyone already whispered about her pregnancy. The building's executive floors were colder, quieter, and sharper that day. Investors' on-site doors closing, gently voices lowered, like secrets had weight. Marina pushed her squeaky cart down the service hallway, fighting nausea from the chemical smell, one hand briefly touching her belly before she remembered to stop. Invisible. Always invisible. But the CEO, Victor Hale, noticed her anyway, not the pregnancy, the pattern. Marina never chatted, never checked her phone, never lingered, and when a message buzzed in her pocket, "Be there before 6. Don't be late." She deleted it so fast it looked like guilt. Then she asked to leave right on time, too quickly, too carefully, like she was obeying a clock that wasn't hers. From the upper window, Victor watched her step into the street with that same quick, alert glance over her shoulder. His jaw tightened. He told himself it was none of his business until he saw her do it again the next day. 5 minutes early. Same tension, same silence. And then he heard himself ask, voice-controlled and cold, "Is there something interfering with your work?" Marina swallowed hard and said, "No, sir," while her hands trembled in her lap. Victor let her go, but the question stayed. And that evening, when Marina hurried away like the city itself was dangerous, Victor did something he hadn't done in years. He stopped assuming. He started watching. Victor Hale told himself he was just making sure she got home safe. That's the lie men like him tell when they don't want to admit something feels wrong. He waited until Marina Duarte boarded the bus, then slid his car into traffic, 2 vehicles behind, keeping distance, like he was trailing a storm cloud. The route stretched longer than he expected, 40 minutes past the glass towers, past the cafes and boutique storefronts, into streets where the sidewalks cracked and the windows stayed shut. Marina didn't look lost. She moved like someone memorizing exits. When she finally stepped off, Victor parked and followed on foot. The neighborhood went quiet, in a way that didn't feel peaceful, more like everyone had learned not to be noticed. Marina turned right, then left slowed near a tall metal gate with 2 cameras staring down like unblinking eyes. There was no welcoming sign, just a small plaque, easy to miss unless you were looking for it. Confidential services. Restricted entry. Marina glanced over her shoulder, quick automatic, then pressed the intercom. The gate opened only a crack. She slipped inside. It closed again immediately. Victor's chest tightened. That wasn't a home. It wasn't a normal apartment building. It was a place designed to disappear people. A shelter. And the realization hit him like a punch, because suddenly every detail lined up: the nausea, the exhaustion, the deleted messages, the 5 minutes early exits, the way she carried fear like a second uniform. Marina wasn't rushing to meet someone. She was rushing to stay hidden. Victor backed away from the gate, as if the metal could burn him. Sitting in his car, hands still on the wheel, one sentence from the day before replayed in his head, his own voice cold and clean. "You're not paid to have secrets." Now he understood the truth. Marina didn't have secrets. She had survival tactics. And Victor Hale, who prided himself on control, realized he'd been walking past a crisis every day and calling it work. The next morning, the building felt different to Marina Duarte, like the walls were listening. She kept her head down, pushed the squeaky cart harder than usual, and tried to become what she'd always been at work, a shadow with a mop. But whispers followed her anyway. Eyes flicked up, then away. And when her phone vibrated at lunch, another unknown number, another cruel line. "You think this will last forever?" Her blood ran cold. She didn't reply. She deleted it. Again. Across the cafeteria, Victor Hale watched without looking like he was watching. He noticed how Marina's shoulders locked the moment her pocket buzzed, how she stopped chewing, how she swallowed like she was forcing fear back down her throat. It wasn't drama. It was training like she'd learned the hard way that panic only makes things worse. By the end of the shift, Marina slipped out 5 minutes early, moving fast, not reckless strategic. Victor didn't even hesitate this time. He followed again, not to prove she was unreliable, but to confirm the truth his gut already knew. And then he did the one thing Marina had spent months trying to avoid. He called her into his office. No yelling, no raised voice. Just silence so heavy it pressed on her ribs. Victor stood by the window, then turned slowly, his expression tight with discomfort, like he hated what he was about to admit. "How long have you worked here?" he asked. 2 years, Marina answered, perched on the edge of the chair, hands folded over her stomach without realizing it. Victor nodded once. "You've never been written up, never missed a shift, never caused a problem." He paused, then said it clean and direct. "I saw where you go after work." Marina's face drained. She stood up so fast the chair scraped the floor. "You followed me?" Her voice broke on the last word, half fury, half terror. "I did," Victor said, steady, "and I crossed a line. I won't pretend I didn't." Marina's breathing turned sharp and fast. "I can't lose this job." Victor held her gaze. "I didn't call you in here to fire you." He let the silence sit, then added softer. "I called you in because you shouldn't have to carry fear into my building and pretend it's nothing." Marina Duarte didn't sit back down. She stood there, chest rising too fast, eyes scanning the office like she was measuring the distance to the door. Her hand drifted to her belly, then snapped away as if even that tenderness could get her punished. Victor Hale stayed where he was. No sudden moves. No boss voice. Just a man who realized he'd stepped into something he didn't understand. "I can't lose this job," Marina said again, louder this time, like volume could turn fear into a contract. "I do everything right. I don't call in. I don't complain. I'm not firing you," Victor cut in, calm but firm. "Sit if you want. Stand if you need to. But look at me." Marina's eyes flicked up then down. She shook her head. "People find out things and they change. They start asking questions. They start watching. And then you're gone." Victor's jaw tightened. He nodded slowly, like he was forcing himself to hear every word without defending himself. "You're staying at a shelter," he said. "And you're pregnant." Her face hardened. "You had no right." "I know," he answered, "no excuses. That's why I'm saying it to your face." A long silence stretched between them. The air conditioner hummed. Somewhere outside, phones rang and doors clicked, life going on like nothing was happening. Finally, Marina's voice came out smaller. "What do you want?" Victor took a breath. "The truth," he said. "Not for gossip. Not for control. Because if you're afraid of something outside these walls, that fear doesn't stop at the front desk." Marina swallowed. Her eyes shined, but she refused to let tears fall. "It's not safe," she admitted. "Not for me. Not for him." She pressed her palm against her stomach now openly, protectively. "When I told him I was keeping the baby, he didn't just get mad. He changed. Control first. Then the yelling. Then the threats." Victor's hand curled into a fist at his side. Slow, controlled anger. "Has he ever come here?" "No," Marina said quickly. "Not yet. But he texts. He watches. And I can't risk anyone at work knowing because the minute people talk, he'll find me." Victor stared at her for a beat, then looked away like shame had suddenly become physical. His earlier words echoed in the room, ugly and sharp. "You're not paid to have secrets." He turned back. "That sentence," he said quietly, "was cruel." Marina didn't soften. "It was easy for you to say," she replied. "You go home to safety." Victor nodded once. "You're right." He stepped back, not retreating, giving her space. "Here's what will happen next today. You work your normal shift. No questions. No comments. No whispers from anyone because I won't allow it. And what you told me stays here, unless you give permission." Marina's eyes narrowed, and after today, Victor met her gaze. "After today," he said, voice steady, "you're not doing this alone anymore." Marina Duarte didn't believe him. Not fully. You don't spend months surviving on silence, and suddenly trust a man in a corner office just because his voice got softer. Still, the next few days felt different. It wasn't dramatic. No speeches, no posters in the lobby, just small, precise shifts that told Marina someone was finally moving pieces without making her the headline. Her schedule changed first, no more late hours, no more extra 5 minutes that forced her to leave in a panic. Victor Hale called it a temporary restructure. Nothing personal, nothing anyone could gossip about. The work got lighter too. Less heavy lifting, fewer chemicals, more predictable tasks. The kind of calm her body had been begging for. And then Victor tried what rich men always try first. He slid a thick envelope across the desk one evening. Immediate support, he said, measured. Nothing in the system. No exposure. Marina didn't touch it. Her eyes hardened like glass. "I'm not for sale," she said. "And I'm not a charity case." Victor held still, then nodded slow, like he'd just learned a language he should have known all along. "You're right," he said. "That was the wrong tool." He put the envelope away without a single argument. No wounded ego, no guilt-tripping, just respect. "Then we do this your way," he said, with dignity. He leaned forward, hands open on the desk. "Your pay stays the same. Your benefits stay the same. Your maternity leave is guaranteed on paper, so nobody can forget later. If anyone comes here looking for you, they don't get past the front door. Period." Marina's throat tightened. She hated that relief could feel so dangerous. "And the shelter?" she asked, voice low. "I don't want the address," Victor said immediately. "I don't want details. I don't want control. I just want you to stop having to choose between safety and survival." Marina stared at him for a long time, searching for the catch. Her hands rested on her belly, steady now. Finally, she gave a small nod, more surrender than trust. "I'll accept the adjustment," she said. "But if my name becomes hallway gossip, it won't," Victor promised, "not while I'm here." And for the first time in a long time, Marina walked out of that office feeling something she hadn't felt since she found out she was pregnant. Not saved, seen. Victor Hale didn't announce his change of heart. He built it in silence because real protection doesn't need applause. A week after Marina accepted the schedule adjustment, he started asking questions that weren't about profits. Not in meetings, not in memos. Quiet calls to legal. A closed-door conversation with HR. Policies pulled up like old blueprints: maternity leave in high-risk cases, security protocols for outside threats, role adjustments that wouldn't punish the employee financially. When HR asked, "Is this about someone specific?" Victor didn't flinch. "It's about something human," he said. "And it's urgent." Marina noticed the shift before anyone explained it. The building didn't feel warmer, just less predatory. People stopped whispering when she passed. The supervisors stopped accidentally piling heavy tasks on her cart. Her body began to unclench one muscle at a time. The nausea eased. The baby moved with more confidence, like it could sense the difference. Still, fear doesn't disappear. It waits. On a Friday afternoon, Marina felt the first tight pull low in her abdomen. Not sharp, persistent. She tried to work through it because that's what women like her do, but the pressure didn't fade. Her breath shortened. A coworker spotted her gripping the counter too hard. "Marina, you're pale." "I'm fine," Marina lied, the old reflex. 10 minutes later, she wasn't fine. At the hospital, the doctor's voice was steady but serious. "Preterm labor risk. Not immediate, but close enough that we don't take chances. She needs monitoring." Marina's eyes closed for a second, not from pain, from the math in her head. Hospital means missed shifts. Missed shifts mean lost income. Lost income means everything collapses. Her first words came out small. "Am I going to lose my job?" Victor answered before the doctor could. He'd arrived without fanfare. No suit jacket sleeves rolled up, like a man who finally understood what urgency looked like. "No," he said. "One word. Solid. Not now." Marina opened her eyes. "And not later," he added, quieter. "You're not a problem to be managed. You're a person. You're living." Something in Marina's face cracked. Not tears yet, but the beginning of release. She turned her head toward the ceiling palm on her belly, breathing through the fear. For the first time, the question wasn't, how do I survive this alone? It was, what does it feel like? To be held up without being owned. 2 weeks later, the baby arrived like a tiny storm, early, furious, and alive. Marina Duarte barely had time to be afraid before the hospital room filled with that sharp, impossible sound, a newborn's cry. Small lungs, big fight. The nurse placed him against Marina's chest, and Marina froze for half a second, like she didn't trust her own hands with something so fragile. Then her arms wrapped around him, instinct stronger than fear. "We did it," she whispered, voice breaking on the last word. "We made it." The shelter handled everything the way shelters do, quietly, efficiently, without turning her pain into a story for strangers. A narrow bed, clean blankets, a visitor list that protected her more than any lock. Women speaking in low voices, someone warming soup, someone rocking a crying baby in the hallway at 3 a.m. No judgment. No questions that made you relive the worst parts. Victor Hale came once. Just once. He didn't walk into Marina's room like a hero. He didn't ask to hold the baby. He didn't make it about him. He stood at the doorway, nodded to the nurse, and left a plain envelope at the front desk. No name written. Big, no note, dripping with sentiment. Inside was only what mattered: diapers formula the first month's covered. Not enough to feel like a leash. Enough to feel like a bridge. When Marina heard, she didn't flinch this time, because it wasn't charity. It didn't feel like buying her gratitude. It felt like someone finally understanding the difference between helping and owning. Between a handout and a hand steadying the ground beneath your feet. Months later, Marina returned to work, but not to the same life. Her role was administrative now. Simple tasks, predictable hours, benefits intact. The office air had shifted, still corporate, still imperfect, but quieter in a new way. Less gossip, more care. A discreet sign appeared on an internal bulletin board. Respect isn't a perk, it's the rule. One afternoon, Marina walked a corridor and saw a new employee sitting on the floor, crying with a spotless uniform and shaking hands. Marina didn't walk past. She sat down beside her. "You want a minute?" Marina asked gently. "Just to breathe." And somewhere across the hall, Victor saw it and didn't step in. Because the real transformation wasn't him doing one good deed. It was a workplace where the invisible learned they were allowed to be seen. Victor Hale didn't move from the end of the hallway. He just watched Marina sit on the floor beside that new girl, like it was the most normal thing in the world. No cameras, no audience, no reward. And that's when it hit him harder than any investor meeting ever had. This wasn't about a good boss saving someone. This was about a system that trained people to cry quietly in corners, because being visible felt dangerous. Later that night, Victor sat in his dark living room with his keys still in his hand, replaying the last few weeks like a tape he couldn't shut off. Marina's posture. Marina's silence. The way she flinched at a vibration in her pocket. The way she looked at the door like it might explode. And suddenly a memory he'd spent decades burying crawled back up. His mother. Long sleeves in summer. A smile that arrived too fast when anyone asked questions. The way she'd say, "I'm fine," like it was a prayer. He remembered being 19, coming home late, too focused on his own life to notice hers slipping. The hospital had called it an accident. He believed it because it was easier. Months later, the truth came out, and the guilt never left. So when Victor found that shelter gate, those cameras, that tiny plaque that said confidential services, he didn't just discover Marina's secret. He discovered the cost of looking away. The next morning, he drove back to the shelter alone. No driver, no suit, no ego. He identified himself with only his first name and asked for nothing. No names, no files, no details. Just understanding. An older woman at the door studied him and said, "People don't come here for attention. They come here for time. Time, Victor repeated like the word had weight. Down the hallway there were children's drawings taped to the wall. A worn sofa. Whispered voices. A baby crying softly somewhere behind a closed door. No drama. Just survival, organized, and quiet. Victor swallowed. I don't want to arrive too late again, he said. The woman didn't smile. She didn't praise him. She only nodded. Then don't turn your face away. And if you're watching this at 65 or 75, let that line sit with you. Sometimes the bravest thing isn't a grand gesture. Sometimes it's simply seeing what everyone else is trained to ignore, then choosing to do the next right thing. The change didn't arrive with a press release. It arrived in the smallest places where fear used to live. Marina Duarte kept her new role quietly. Predictable hours. Less strain. A body that finally got a chance to heal. Her baby's crib sat in a modest apartment that felt almost unreal at first, because safety is strange when you've spent so long bracing for impact. And at work, something subtle kept happening. People stopped treating her like a rumor. They treated her like a person. No whispers when she walked by. No sideways looks, just space to breathe. Victor Hale didn't hover. He didn't check in like she owed him gratitude. He simply held the line behind the scenes, so the workplace stayed steady when life wasn't. And one afternoon when he saw Marina sit beside a crying new employee and offer, "Want a minute," just to breathe, he understood the final truth. Real help doesn't turn someone into a story. It gives them their dignity back. If you're watching this at 65, 75, or 85, here's what matters. The world will always have people who suffer quietly because they've learned that being seen can be dangerous. The difference between breaking someone and saving them is often one decision: don't look away. Not with pity, with presence, with respect, with action that doesn't demand applause. Now tell me in the comments, have you ever been the Marina, or the Victor, the one who needed help, or the one who finally chose to notice? And if this story hit your heart, subscribe, hit like, and turn on notifications, because the next story might be exactly what someone you love needs to hear.